by the federal government for raising the fine for hate speech from 500,000 to 5 million naira. The NBA and others in separate interviews said the hike was an attempt to stifle the media. Deputy Governor of Edo State, Mr. Philip Shuaibu, has accused the Deputy Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Yekini Idiaye, of collecting 40 million naira from the former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshomole, to support the candidacy of the candidate of the party in the September 19th governorship election, Osage Izeyomu. Addressing supporters of the PDP in Lampese, Akoko Edo local government area, Shuaibu alleged that Idiaye, who represents Akoko Edo constituency 1, and the member representing Akoko Edo constituency 2, Emmanuel Agbaje, were paid 40 million naira each to influence their support for Izeyamu. Those were the claims made there. And the Niger Delta Development Commission has said the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, stands by the list of contractors he released, which contained the names of some lawmakers and ex-governors as NDDC contractors. The Commission said the names emanated from files in the possession of its forensic auditors, adding that it was part of the volume of 8,000 documents handed over to the audit team. Akpabio had, during the investigative hearing of the House of Representatives last month, claimed that some lawmakers were beneficiaries of NDDC projects. Those are some of the issues making headlines in the political space. Remember, we are live on 3 platforms. Yes, on Facebook is 925 Dream FM. On YouTube is Dream TV Enugu. Remember to subscribe and turn on notification. And on Twitter, it's Dream 925 FM. Stay with us. All right, welcome. This is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. And joining us on the program this morning is Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, joining us via Zoom, actually. Mr. Ngelale is the Senior Special Assistant to the President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. Good morning to you, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you, my dear brother, and good morning to all of our listeners. It's good to be back in the Southeast, at least virtually. You know, it's the home of my in-laws.
Yes. All right, then. Thank you so much. We also have in the studio Dr. Chukwumokoli. We'll be speaking to him much later on the program. He's a political economist and research consultant. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Alex. Thank you, listeners.
All right. I would like to ask you, Mr. Ngelale, because a lot of people will be wondering why government had to adjust this and that in the economic sustainability plans. But how sustainable is this economic sustainability plan when the country is struggling to actually find resources to do basic things like salaries and the rest of it?
Yes. Thank you very much, Alex. Let me first, if you do not mind, very, very briefly, if you can just allow me to address an issue you raised in your Matters Arising before I get into your question.
All right.
You know, the issue of adjustment of the hate speech fine from 500,000 to 5 million naira. I think it's extremely important that we understand the difference between what is hate speech, which is clearly defined. It's not some abstract term that government will conveniently use to stifle opposition. No, it's very clearly laid out what hate speech is. So if somebody goes on air and they say all Northerners should leave the country, or all Igbo people should leave Nigeria, or all Yoruba people should leave Nigeria, that is hate speech. We have seen the cost of hate speech. In Rwanda, when 1 million people were killed in that genocide, it started from radio station. It started from people saying that we are not going to tolerate this ethnic group or that ethnic group and all of that. And we saw how it resulted. We have so many ethnic groups in this country, and our national cohesion and unity is something that has to be carefully protected and nurtured. And when people are coming out to issue hate speeches and all of that, we also have to ensure that we disincentivize that. So if anybody thinks that this means that we're going to be fining people for saying that we do not like President Muhammadu Buhari's policy in the power sector, or we don't think President Muhammadu Buhari is handling economy well, that is hate speech. That is wrong. That is not hate speech. That is criticism. And criticism is encouraged. It is fully allowed. Hate speech is clearly defined. And so what we have said is that the reason why we have increased the money is to say many radio stations or TV stations do not exercise the responsibility over dealing with hate speech, because they think let me just say some, believe that hate speech, for example, provides controversy and sensational content that people will want to listen to, right? So they don't really discourage it. So what we are saying is, if you are not going to do the right thing and discourage what is hate speech, then we will step in and ensure that you pay a price so that you will learn to discourage it, because ultimately our national unity is at stake. And national stability, and if anything like genocide begins to happen, nobody will be safe. So now that one is addressed. Now the issue of what you have asked me is very, very important. In terms of the funding for the plan, let me just explain the plan a little bit. It's a 2.3 trillion naira plan, and the 2.3 trillion naira plan has to do with making sure that we use every kobo of the plan to engage 100% indigenous Nigerian companies who will employ only 100% indigenous Nigerian labor, who will use only 100% indigenous Nigerian raw materials. That means every kobo will provide maximum economic impact on the livelihoods of Nigerians and Nigerians alone instead of foreign companies. That's number one. Number two is, in terms of funding, we have already sourced the funding. We're not looking for the money. At no time has federal government come out to say that we're struggling to pay salaries. That was 2014. When we had oil price crash in 2014, we could not pay salaries at the state or federal level. Now we have not had any problem with, not only are we paying all of our salaries on time, federal salaries, state governments have what they need to pay salaries, but we are even going a step further. We're even funding our budget. Just last week, we released 162 billion naira in Sukuk funds for 44 road projects across the country. That includes about 6 billion for Enugu-Onitsha Expressway on the Amancia to Enugu State border section, and then an additional 5 billion for the OP junction to Anambra State border section of Enugu-Onitsha Expressway. And that is not including over about almost 10 billion that we have released for Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway from Enugu-Lokpanta, from Lokpanta Umuahia, and Umuahia to Aba. So that has all been released just last week. So not only are we paying salaries, but we're funding our budgets. But this plan is funded by three major sources. One is 500 billion naira that we have just released that we received approval on from National Assembly, which is a COVID-19 relief fund, 500 billion. Then we also have $3.4 billion that we have been able to withdraw from our contributions to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, over a period of years. You know, every year you have to pay membership dues to be a part of IMF over a period of time. But during time of economic crisis, emergency crisis, they allow countries to withdraw their membership funds for emergency crisis, which you will later repay back. But it's not a formal loan program that comes with all sorts of conditions and all of that. It doesn't come with any of those conditions. So we have $3.4 billion that we withdrawn from our membership contributions from IMF. And then we have an additional $2.5 billion from the World Bank. $1 billion of which is going to the state governments, and then $1.5 billion, of course, is being used to fund this program. So funding is not a problem for us, not in terms of salary payment, not in terms of funding our budget, and not in terms of funding this economic sustainability plan. The money is in place.
All right. But some analysts are saying that it may be difficult to implement because emphasis are placed on increasing government revenue through borrowing and taxation, and less emphasis on reducing costs, wastages, and pilfering that have become part of some agencies of government. How do you respond to this?
Yes, there's no doubt that we have to raise our revenues, which is a major reason why you have seen a significant movement on that front. And I'll be very precise in what I'm saying, because I always encourage our people to fact check what anybody is saying. When people are on TV and radio, we need to go and Google and fact check what people are saying so that we're not deceived by anybody. Let me start by saying that the issue of revenue, you recall that in 2015, anybody can Google this, we had a net a taxpayer base within FIRS. Total taxpayers in Nigeria was 13 million Nigerians. That means that from 1960 to 2015, 55 good years, we were only able to produce 13 million taxpayers out of 200 million Nigerians. Now, from 2015 to 2020, in the last 5 years, compared to the previous 55, we have been able to increase our taxpayer base from 13 million Nigerians paying taxes to 35 million Nigerians paying taxes. You can go to FIRS and verify what I am saying. We have almost tripled the number in just 5 years. In 2019, FIRS recorded the highest annual tax revenue rate in the history of the FIRS at 5.3 trillion. If not for COVID-19, we would have even expected to surpass that this year, but because of COVID-19, it's unlikely that this year we will surpass that, but hopefully next year. So yes, revenue is still a problem. We still have a long way to go, but we have made a lot of progress on that front. And the truth of the matter is that, currently speaking, Nigeria has a tax to GDP. Our GDP is approximately $375 billion every year, right? At least last year. Let's look at last year, since it was a normal year. $375 billion. When oil prices are high, it usually goes up to about $500 billion. Now, what you have is we have a tax to GDP ratio in this country of about 6%. That means our total tax revenue compared to our GDP is only 6% of GDP. If you go to South Africa, you're talking about over 15%. You go to Kenya, you're talking about 15%. You go to Egypt, you're talking over 15%. Same thing in Ghana. We're doing 6% or less. Right now, less than 30% of all Nigerians who are working, I'm not talking of unemployed Nigerians, I'm talking of employed Nigerians who are working, less than 30% pay their tax, as it is right now, today, right now. And before this administration came into office, it was less than 15%. We have doubled that rate, but we still have a lot more work to do. So now, what we are saying is very clear. Until we get to a point where we can get to about 15-20% tax collection to GDP, you will continue to have budget shortfalls, which means that even if you're producing your revenue, you will still have a gap in terms of financing your budget for capital projects like railways, roads, airports, seaports, power plants, dams, and all of that. And that is why we now have to borrow to fund those capital projects. Not borrowing to pay salaries, borrowing to pay for these capital projects that eventually will allow us to pay back. So this is where we are, and we've made progress, but we have a long way to go still.
All right. There seems to be a lot of concern in some regions of Nigeria. They are saying that the government is borrowing money, but the projects for which the monies are being borrowed don't seem to be very inclusive of all the regions. Just a bit of example will be the rail project, which is supposed to connect the whole country, but some regions have been left out of the project. How do you explain this perception shared by some areas of the country? They feel they are left behind when money is borrowed on behalf of the country, but spent for just a section of the country.
Thank you very much, my brother, Mr. Alex. I'm so happy that you asked this question, because this has been an area where we have seen massive misrepresentation, and I want to be very clear again with facts, because when we deal with facts, you know that there's no way around it. Example, before we go into railway, the most expensive bridge project, because I want to be very clear about what we're talking about. When we say there are claims of marginalization with projects and borrowed funds and all of that, really what we're talking about are the claims of marginalization in the southeast. That is where the clamor has really come from in terms of this notion of marginalization. And so I want to address the issue of the alleged southeast marginalization in terms of infrastructure. What you have is the 206 billion naira second Niger bridge, which we have all been talking about for 40 years. We have been talking about it. In 2015, there was not even an attempt to begin that project. Not even one pillar was put in the water. Right now, where we are is we have moved from 0%, nothing, to 40%. Since we began construction in I believe we started construction in 2017. We have now put all of the 18-story pillars all the way across the River Niger. We have now started the process of decking, which means that you can now see the bridge being placed on top of the pillars. We have already gone to that stage. We are telling our people conclusively, we are saying it openly so that they will hold us to account. That bridge is going to be completed by February 2022. February 2022. That is number one. Number two, the Sukuk bonds is borrowing. It is a low interest borrowing facility that we have taken for 44 critical road projects across all 6 geopolitical zones. I have just laid out in detail. And if you want, I can even go to the point of even telling you who the contractors are, because I have that information with me. On the Enugu Onitsha Enugu Expressway that has been left abandoned for 40 or 50 years, even by governments that claim that they love the southeast so much, they abandoned those projects. What we have done is we have released just in the last week 6 billion naira for one section and 5 billion naira for the other section. That is just Enugu Onitsha Expressway. On the Enugu Port Harcourt dual carriageway, and we all know, me, I travel that road. I'm a Port Harcourt boy. I am from River State. I am married to an Igbo girl from Enugu State and Anambra State, and I'm very proud of that. And I can tell you that I traveled on Enugu Port Harcourt myself before 2015. What you will see there are heaps of rubbish, you will see mud, and you will see tankers flipped on their head because there's no road. That is what you would have seen there. If you travel that road now, you would have seen massive improvement over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. And I don't think anybody can dispute that fact. Now, really where we are now is we have released about 10 billion in the last 1 week for the extension and expansion of work on Enugu Port Harcourt, in addition to Enugu Onitsha, and in addition to the second Niger Bridge, right? Now, another thing we have done is we are about to conclude, by the end of this year, we would have finished construction on the 60 billion local Oweto bridge that links Benue and Nasarawa State. Why is that important? Once that link is done, it will reduce the travel time from southeast to Abuja by about 5 hours. Because right now, our people in the southeast have to go the long way around, having to go through Kogi State, and all of that. Now you're going to be able to go through Benue to Nasarawa direct through the local Oweto bridge, saving about 5 hours once that's completed at the end of this year. Now, I have dealt a little bit with the roads, and I have not even mentioned the 9th mile Enugu Makurdi road, which we have done massive construction on, and we're continuing to construct. The other aspect is rail, which I'm happy you asked about, because there are multiple projects in the railways that are in the offing. The loan that we took, I think you're referring to the $22.7 billion loan that we took for several projects across the country that was just approved by National Assembly. Some people have said that Southeast was left out of that facility. I want to correct that impression, and I'll be very specific in what I'm talking about. Within that loan facility, you have a major roadway of about, I believe it's about 260 kilometers or so, which is the Abakaliki-Onoja Road. We're reconstructing the Abakaliki-Onoja Road all the way from beginning to end, and we're even looking at how to expand that road. It is a full reconstruction. You know that road is not in a good condition. 270 something kilometers. That is inside of that loan facility. That's number one. Number two, on the issue of railway, what have we done? There's the coastal rail line that is what we call the Lagos to Calabar rail line that is supposed to run across all of the Niger Delta states. But because it's very expensive, it's something like $13 billion. We are taking a section of that rail line. We're only going to do a section, a very critical section, and we're running it from Port Harcourt to the southeast. It's going to go from Port Harcourt to Aba. Aba is not in the south-south. Aba is in the southeast. It's going to go from Port Harcourt to Aba, from Aba to, I think, Uyo, from Uyo to Calabar. That is the path. And the reason why Aba is strategically placed there is because we consider it a manufacturing hub of the future. It's going to be one of the critical manufacturing and fabrication hubs of this country. So that rail line is going to start from One Port, One Deep Sea Port in Rivers State. It moves from Port Harcourt to Aba, from Aba to Uyo, from Uyo to Calabar. So it is not true that the Southeast is left out of the railway project in our borrowing plan. That is number two. And then the final point I want to make is that there is a third rail line, that is the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri rail line. That rail line runs through all of the southeast capitals. Now, the issue we have there is that the funding is about $14 billion or so, right? So, as we speak right now, we're in negotiations with the Chinese to try and get the funding for that particular rail line, because we want to be able to connect all of the southeast capitals via rail line. This is very, very important for us. But in the interim period, what we have done is the one that we can afford is the $3 billion line that is going to run from Port Harcourt to Aba, and that's what we're doing. And the last, let me just say very quickly, some people have asked the question, when you people started doing rail line in this country, right? Particularly under Goodluck Jonathan, there was a rail line that was started, which is Abuja to Kaduna rail line, right? They took it to about 75%. We now finished it, which is okay. Then we now started the Lagos-Ibadan rail line, right? In 2017, we started that rail line. The Lagos-Ibadan rail line has mostly been concluded. What we're just doing now is to expand it to Lagos Apapa Port, so that we can be decongesting Apapa Port by taking containers on the rail line out of the port through Abeokuta to Ibadan, where we have inland dry port. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because some people have said, why did they start a rail line project in North and the West? And the answer is not because APC was a political partnership between Southwest and North. No, that is wrong. The reason why we have done that is because anybody who conducts economic analysis in this country knows where the massive tonnage of goods and services are moved from. You will know that they are moved between the two commercial capitals in this country, which is number one, Lagos, and number two, Kano. So most of the food that we're consuming in the south, we're moving from the north. The items that we're exporting and importing, most of it is being trafficked between Lagos and Kano. So my point is that is why we started from there, but we are not excluding the south and the southeast, because very soon we will start the Aba rail line. All right.
Finally, Mr. Ngilale, Nigeria has been mentioned as the poverty capital of the world. How do you respond to this vis-a-vis the fight against corruption? Because we seem to be seeing different scenarios where investigations are going on, and the institutions are accusing each other of corruption. How do you respond to this development?
Well, I don't know which institutions are accusing each other of corruption.
I will give you a little instance. The NDDC, for instance, and the House of Representatives committee that investigating them. There seem to be counterclaims and charges.
Okay, that's what you're referring to. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much.
And even the EFCC.
The fact, what I often tell people about this. Thank you very much for raising the issue. What I often tell people about this is that it's very interesting to me that the fact that these things are even coming out speaks to the fact that there's a war on corruption. These are things that were hidden, that were not talked about for 20 good years. Now you're having open revelation of all of these things. In the past, have we ever seen an EFCC chairman being dragged before an independent investigative panel for corruption? In the history of this country, we have never seen that. The reason why you're seeing that now is because of the sincerity of President Muhammadu Buhari in fighting corruption. I want to go to the facts, because I think this is where we get saved from a lot of emotion and sentiment. The fact of the matter is, from 2009 to 2019, that is 10 years, my brother, 10 years. 2009 to 2019, EFCC recovered a total of 1.2 trillion naira. That is separate from dollars and separate from plots of land and all of that. Just naira collection, 1.2 trillion in 10 years. From 2009 to 2015, which is the first 6 years out of that 10-year period, less than 300 billion was collected. It was about 270 billion or so. From 2015 to 2019, that is the last 4 years out of the 10-year period, 939 billion was collected out of the 1.2 trillion over that 10-year period. So the proof is in the pudding when it comes to recoveries. We have seen a drastic improvement in recoveries. We have also seen APC senators going to jail As we speak now, there are senators in jail from APC. We've seen PDP officials in jail. We've seen the EFCC chairman. We've seen so many different things happen. Now, the issue that we have is that when you have rot in your institution, very deep corruption, it is going to take a long time to fight that corruption. But we're at least beginning to see a legitimate war on that corruption. And I think that is something that should be commended. But let me just say before I go, because I know time is going out. On the economic sustainability plan, there are a few things that people should expect, because I have not even mentioned anything about it. Very, very quickly, if you don't mind, my brother, please. One, we're dealing with agriculture. Agriculture, what we're doing is all state governments of the Federation, including Enugu State, and the Enugu State government has been a fantastic partner with the federal government in terms of economic development. The Enugu State government, like all other governments, are providing between 20,000 and 100,000 hectares of land to the federal government in exchange for the federal government employing millions of our young people from the various states to cultivate high-value export commodities within those states. These are cash crops like cashew, ground cocoa, sesame seed, and many others, so that we can employ our young people immediately in the plan, indigenous Nigerians, and then we can also expedite increase our export earnings via the sale of these cash crops. The second leg, very quickly, is housing. We're constructing 300,000 houses in 12 months across all states of the Federation equally. That means the same amount of houses we're constructing in Enugu is the same amount of houses we're constructing in Katsina. So what we have is 300,000 divided by the 774 local government areas of the Federation, which is about 400 per local government. Those will be built by Nigerian companies using Nigerian labor and using Nigerian raw materials. The final thing I want to mention is we have the Special Public Works Program, where we are recruiting 1,000 young people, young Nigerians from every local government area of the Federation, because the president was adamant that there must be equity in distribution of spread of jobs and benefits. So every local government will produce 1,000 young people for our special public works program, where these young people will be employed to reconstruct rural roads using Nigerian raw materials like bitumen. So all of these things are going on, and then we're just about to launch the MSME Survival Fund that is also part of this plan, where we are going to provide 300,000 MSMEs with the facilities to ensure that they can sustain 1 million jobs during COVID-19 through grants. That means that MSMEs will not have to pay that money back. So all of these things are taking off right now.
Thank you. We have to thank you so much, Mr. Ajuri Ngilale, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs, and he himself is an ace broadcaster, and that's why you were just rattling away on this. Thank you so much for your time here on Political Voices.
God bless you, my brother. I look forward to coming back. Please stay safe out there, everybody. Wear your mask. Let's protect each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And back here in the studio, we will continue talking to Dr. Chuks Okoli, who has been, I'm sure you've been listening to Mr. Ajuri Ngilale.
Sure.
You are a political economist and a research consultant with Godfrey Okoye University. And talk to us about, I'm sure you've gone through the plan, and talk to us about how feasible you think it is in terms of the reality versus what's on paper.
Yeah. If you look at the plan, let me say that the nature of response of every state, or the government of every state in a period of pandemic, determines how the state will develop, whether the state will develop or whether the state will continue to regress post-pandemic. And so the economic sustainable plan, that the government has come up is kind of a response to the ravages of the COVID-19. And I think that if you look at what the statistics available, the MBS has done well by giving us a quarterly report of the impact of the COVID-19, and then the MBS has said that three key sectors have been most impacted: agriculture, commerce, and service. And I think that having looked through the plan, the plan tries theoretically to speak to the findings of the MBS. And so, basically, there are three key pillars in the economic sustainability plan. One is on issue of the real sector. They want to boost the real sector to salvage the companies, the industries that are suffering from the ravages of the COVID-19, to the monetary and fiscal policies sector, to come up with policies, that will jolt the economy out of the, let me say, depression that we are going into, And so there is the third one, which is about signage implementation. These are the three key pillars of the sustainability plan. And then, just as the SSA rightly said, the sustainability plan came up with 10 key projects. 10 key projects. Now, if you look at the document, a very wonderful document, the challenge, just as it says, sustainability, what are we sustaining? Okay, and so when I look at the title of the plan, Economic Sustainability Plan, I believe that it was made on the assumption of the government that they have done well, just as the SSA has reeled out here, and that they need to sustain what they are doing. But again, we need to look at it again, the backdrop of just one of the things you have mentioned, the growing poverty, So when you assess programs of any agency, any individuals of any company, there are things you put out. You look out the output. What are those activities, that the implementer has carried out, and then thereafter, you also look at the outcome. Having looked at your activities, those things that you have created, what are those changes that have resulted from all those things that you have put on the table? If you want to fight poverty, for instance, you can go through a lot of activities, give loan to people and palliative to people, but at the end, we also look at the outcome. How have all these things resulted in reducing the number of people that are poor? Okay, so the major challenge we have with this sustainability plan is just like every other plan that we've seen, every other blueprint, every other white paper that we've seen across Nigeria, the challenge of implementation. Before the economic sustainability plan, there was the economic growth plan of the government that followed the recession, that was aimed to jolt the country out of recession and then to boost the economy. And now, before we were able to implement that, the COVID-19 came up, and then today we are talking of economic sustainability plan. The major challenge, just as the SSA has rightly said, is that we are depending so much on loan. The question is then, if you are depending so much on loan, are you mortgaging the future of this country? Are you mortgaging the future of this country? Rightly, the SSA has said that much of the projects will be based on indigenous companies. We expect that will create jobs and all that. For instance, housing, that we are going to build 300,000 houses to reduce the challenge of housing in this country, but that we are going to depend on loan. Already, experts are already saying that the amount of money we are spending on servicing loan, the amount of money we are spending on servicing loan is already undermining efforts of the government in bringing about development. And now we are increasing the debt burden of this country. By the way, remember that sometimes much of this debts, much of this loan come with conditionalities. When you look at some of this loan, they usually have certain conditionalities that are attached to them by the creditors. Okay, so for instance, we have been talking about taxation, increase in taxation and all that. And so you believe with me that one of the things that the Bretton Woods institution, basically the IMF and the World Bank that the SSA has rightly mentioned, which are some of the major creditors that we have seen, one of their conditionalities is to tell you to begin to increase the level of tax. And so we are increasing tax in the midst of poverty. For instance, one of the things that the government has done through the FIRS is to increase the stamp duty, widen the net of the stamp duty. And one of the things that of recent that has led to backlash from the public is the stamp duty to be paid by tenants. Today, based on that plan by the FIRS, we expect that tenants will pay, I think, 0.78% of their tenancy, of their house rent, of their rents that are less than 7 years.
And
okay?
but technically, isn't this supposed to be people who are already paying taxes are also being further levied on this?
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making, because I was coming from the sources, just as I said, the plan, very wonderful plan, but we're also looking at things like the source of funding for the plan. Okay, so most of them are coming externally. All right, and then with condition. And so one of the things that IMF does for you is before they give you money, they must come into your economy. Okay, now one of the things that they have been pushing is increase in tax. But the challenge I keep saying is that much of these Western countries come up with policies that are based on theories that do not understand our peculiarities. They assume, for instance, that just as the SSA said, that just 13 million people, 13 million Nigerians are paying tax. That is not true, because the MBA statistics that I just mentioned about said that I think the SBS says 65% of Nigerians, or that 65% of contribution to the economy comes from the informal sector. So that goes to speak that most of Nigerians are also in the informal sector. So many people in the Ogbeta market, so many people in the Ababa market and all that pay different forms of tax that are not properly captured. Okay, so but the Western world understands tax once it's in terms of stamp duty, in terms of income tax, and once you're not paying that, you're not paying tax.
Right.
Okay, and that is what they are trying to extend now, thereby increasing the number of taxes. Worsening the situation of multiple taxation that has been a problem in Nigeria. For instance, I'm just coming from where I'm living. This morning, I noticed that they barricaded everywhere and they're requesting the residents to pay their security levy. So you see that you pay for your security, you pay for your water, you pay for your generator, and then many other taxes. If you have your kids in the school, for instance, recently I heard, even though I heard that has been reversed, that kids in a particular state were expected to pay 25,000 naira test for COVID-19 test. Okay, so these are forms of things that we must capture into the taxation of Nigerians. All right, so that's for me. I think that one of the challenge of this plan is that it tries to seek the funds from the wrong places.
All right. This is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. You've been listening to Dr. Chukwuma Koli. He's a political economist and research consultant. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join the conversation there, and you can call us on 090200202925 or 08098888. Let's know what you think about this discussion. It is technically about the economic sustainability plan of the federal government. We'll look at the issues and the concerns. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's the name and location?
It's Bernard from Enugu.
Bernard, you're welcome.
Now, I listen to FSA with keen interest. But he's working for his master. He always tries to paint a very good picture. But I want to ask, he's not with us again. I want to ask the guest a question. The sustainability plan, I listened to the Minister of Transportation yesterday. He said that the Chinese are giving us loan for that particular project. That money is going to CCCC, the construction country that is handling the project. That because Chinese government are not giving the money to Nigeria government, that money is going to that country. So how will Nigeria masses benefit from that loan Nigeria is collecting? Because the Chinese, any contract they handle, they will bring their people, experts from their place to handle the contract. I want to ask the guest, how do we benefit from that loan that we are collecting? And they are building they are taking the loan for north and the southwest. Only Itape, Minister Freddy, it's only Itape one that is only in the south. Others are concentrated in north. Now the next one they are going to take, then focus on the south. That was what I heard from the minister. And they are going to pay. I think they are paying with oil money that is coming from southeast and south. So I think what is that one percent? I want the case to at least throw more light on this.
All right then. Thank you. He will respond to that while we take more calls and listen to other people. 0902 00202925 or 0809 8888 Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning to you. What's your name and location?
Hello, Alex. My name is Mr. Ndubisa. I'm calling from Ezra.
You're welcome.
Yes. I just want to quickly respond to some justifications the SSG to the president made on increase in the hate speech bill. So he can't get away with such justification here in Southeast. It will look as if all of us are fools. There is no justification for that increase. In the first place, the unity of Nigeria must not be by force. They use military to protect the unity of Nigeria, and they're using law to protect the unity of Nigeria. Had it been SAG in the studio, I would have asked you, how do you reconcile a situation where you are protecting you are using a speech bill to stop people from making some statement that is capable of disintegrating Nigeria, while you allow a coalition of northern youths to issue quick notice? No person was given to them, none of them were arrested. Then how then do you justify the issue of hate speech when an organization like IPOB is labeled a terrorist group, while Fulani Herdsmen who has been killing people, even we know what is going on in South up as we speak, and we know what is going on around our enclave here with the farmland, and you are not addressing it. You are not even promoting a bill that will put stiffer punishment for them to stop their marauding treatment. But you are increasing. So in response to SSG, I want to tell him that speech bill is targeted at some people. It is not for national interest. Good morning.
All right, please. He's the SSA to the president on public affairs, not the SSG, so that we don't misrepresent who he is. And we'll take some more calls, and we're expecting another call from someone. But what's your name and location?
Good morning.
What's your name and location?
Okay, my name is Susan. I'm calling from Enugu.
You're welcome.
I came into the program halfway, but I was able to grab some silent points. You see, the last speaker that spoke before I decided to call spoke my mind. You see, sometimes we find it difficult to speak the truth here. And the aim of this hate speech bill is aimed at making sure that the truth is no longer spoken. And it is unfortunate that some of us from the Southeast, the Igbos, that are opportune to be in some political positions, sees it as an opportunity to drive home the vision of the Northerners, which is very, very unfair. Because you go home with something at the end of the day and you share the collective interest of your people for the sake of pecuniary gains. And personally, I feel like shedding tears when I see the way we are being treated here. So my point is that if we have the opportunity to get these things done right, our people should help.
Okay, then.
Because we are being marginalized.
We have to keep it short so we can accommodate other people on the program. I want to read a few messages, but seem to be having a problem getting to the message. But we will take some more calls. 0902 0020925 or 0809 8888
Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Alex.
What's your name and location?
My name is Irian, and I'm from Oka.
You're welcome.
Yeah, talking about this economic sustainability plan. I'm even wondering, the plan the government has before now, how has that plan really impacted positively on the market? Now we are trying to sustain those plans. I want to advise you, Mr. Alex, so please keep the record of what that SSA said, so that when they fail to do what they said, you can replay it for them. So I believe that way it will not be a speech or whatever. It will be replaying what they said and that they did not do. So I want to say that any plan they have should reflect on the well-being of the masses, not on some individuals or some few.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Alex.
Okay, then. Thank you so much. Those are some of the calls we'll take. Coming back to you, Dr. Chukwumokoli, there seem to be lots of concerns from the people on how sustainable this sustainability plan would be. So, talk to us about whether you share the same fears with them.
You see, when usually when I come for radio conversations like this, I don't like joining issues with co-discussants. There are a lot of gaps in some of the things that SSA to the governor, to the president said. For instance, on the issue of 100% indigenous labor, all right, against the backdrop that much of the money will be borrowed. Okay, so the possibility of that, you know, that it's slim. Okay, and more so, one of the questions, or the first question that was put to him, was on a comparative analysis of the projects across the 6 geopolitical zones. But I think that he made the mistake of focusing on mere descriptive analysis. We expected him to bring on the table the number of of projects in the southwest and the north and all that. Okay, that is what we call a comparative analysis. If it was in my statistics class, I think I would have given him a carryover to
It's okay. Let's quickly bring in Balez and Henry Mekonyeso to the conversation. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the program. I'm sure you've been listening to us. Please talk to us about what your take is on the submissions made by the SSA to the president.
Good morning, Alex. I'm just going to supply some information, not reacting to anything.
Okay, sir.
In June this year, the federal government of Nigeria released medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy. And it showed that in the first quarter of 2020, Nigeria federal government incurred a debt service, that is paying interest and so on and so on loans to the tune of 943.12 billion. Whereas the federal government revenue, the World Bank prescribed maximum limit of debt service to revenue is 22.5%. Again, it will interest you to know that the budget office shows that by 2017, total spending of the federal government was 6.05 trillion against total revenue of only 2.71 trillion. The difference of over 3 trillion was borrowed revenue. The debt service ratio to revenue was 60%. Again, quickly, by 2012, Nigeria had only a foreign debt of 4.1 billion. But by 2018, it has climbed to 17.8 billion. Now it is close to about 22 or 23 billion. So Nigeria is living on borrowed funds. Even the fuel the federal government puts in the tank of vehicles, the food they eat anywhere in Abuja is from money borrowed locally and internationally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Balez and Henry, for your thoughts on the program. And I'll quickly turn to you, Dr. Chukwumokoli. But before I do that, let me just read this message. I'm having a hard time reading the messages from Facebook. I must apologize for that. Federal government's income. This is from Ifeanyi John Paul on Facebook. He says, federal government's economic effort is clearly not working. The present is too harsh, yet no light in the tunnel. Truth transcends politics and decorated speeches. Your guests are blah blah blah. Right? You are saying things that we can't say on radio. I mean, you wouldn't like to be described the way you're describing others. Dr. Chukwumokoli, as we go now in a minute, talk to us about what we must do to have a sustained sustainability plan.
Good. First, for me, the economic system at the moment is not something we want to sustain. We need to jolt the economy out of the depression we are experiencing now before we think of sustaining what we have achieved. At the moment, poverty is increasing, inequality is increasing, hunger is increasing. If you look at the baseline statistics of the MBS on the COVID-19 impact, you could see that the increasing number of people are unable to purchase staple foods. And so one of the issues that was mentioned in the sustainability plan is agriculture. but there is need for us to de-risk agriculture. It is not enough for you to get loan and give people and give them hectares of land to go into agriculture, where there is so much insecurity in that sector at the moment. When I mean insecurity, there is serious clash between the farmers and the herdsmen, okay? And then the challenges of market vulnerabilities, okay? For instance, the tomato farmer, how do you protect that from destruction of the tomatoes between Jos and Enugu? All right, for instance, the SSA mentioned that they were trying to make effort to get the youth engaged in agriculture for export. For me, there is a difference between food security and food sovereignty. People have food sovereignty when they are able to decide for themselves what they are producing in the farm